Okay, okay, I'm recording now, but yeah, hello guys. I'm gonna do this now as story time. I hope I won't forget about this, like other things. I guess I don't know. I read books. I have the first one I'll be doing is the fourth closet, scored Cortha, and as you can see, I have two things of it there. Yeah. Okay. Chapter 1. Charlie, Charlie! John clambered through the rubble towards the place where she'd been choking on the dust of the explosion. The ruins shifted beneath his feet, and he stumbled over a block of concrete and caught himself just before falling. Scraping his hand raw, he grabbed frantically at the broken surface. He reached it, the place where she'd been. He could feel her presence beneath him. He took a hold of an immense block of concrete and heaved it with his strength. He managed to tilt it from the pile and overturn where it fell, and with a thud, and rattling on the ground he stood on. Rattling the ground he stood on. Over his head, a steel beam cracked, wavering profusely. Charlie! John cried her name again as he shoved another block of concrete away. Charlie, I'm coming. He was gasping for he was gasping for breath, moving the uh, remains of the house with dis, de, desperate adrenaline-fueled strength, but with the adrenaline he was running thin. His he set his jaw and pressed on. His palms slipped as he tried to lift the next block, and while he looked, he dead, realized deadly that his left hand streaks of blood. Wherever he touched, he wiped his palms on his jeans and tried again. This time, broken concrete moved, and he balanced on his thighs, and he took 3 steps away, then dropped it on a pile of debris. It crashed into the rubble and shattered onto the rock and glass beneath it, starting to avalanche of its own. And then, beneath the sounds of wrecking, he heard her whisper, "John, Charlie, John." Charlie, his heart stopped beating as he whispered back to her. Again in the rubble, he moved, and the rubble unmoved under his feet. This time, he fell landing hard on his back, knocking the wind out of him. He struggled to inhale. His lungs, his his struggling to inhale, his lungs useless. Then, haltingly, he began to breathe. He sat up, lightheaded, and saw the collapse he had revealed. He was in the little hidden room in Charlie's childhood house. Before him was a plain, smooth metal wall. At the center was a door with an outline without hinges or handles. He only knew an outline. But he knew it was because Charlie had known when she stopped running. In the middle of their escape, she pressed her cheek against the surface, calling someone inside. "John," she whispered his name again, and the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once, bouncing off walls of the room. Bounce off the roof of the room. I keep forgetting. Oh God, where is it? Of the damn it. Uh, okay. John got to his feet and put his hands on the door. It was cool to the touch. He pressed his cheek to it just as Charlie had, and it grew colder like it was draining the warmth from his skin. John Hope pulled back and rubbed the clothes on his face, still watching the door as shiny as the metal began to dull before his eyes. Its colour paled. And the door itself began to thin, its solidarity vanishing until it looked like frosted glass. John saw, as a shadow behind the glass, a figure of a person. The figure stepped closer to the door, clarifying until he could almost see through it. Mirroring the figure on the other side, had it had a face, sleek, polished, its eyes like a statue, sculpted, unseeing. John peered through the door between, then breathing. Clouds, transparent barrier. Then suddenly, the eyes snapped open. The figure stood placidly. Oh my god, I'm bad with some words. Placidly before him, the eyes fixed on nothing. They were clouded, unmoving, dead. Someone laughed. One laughter, frantic, mirthless sound that echoed in the small, scaled room, and John looked wildly around for the source. Then the laughter in the pit growing louder, and John uncovered his ears with his hands as a piercing noise became unbearable. "Charlie!" he cried again. John jerked awake, his heart racing. The laughter went on, following him into the dream. What's that? It's like just checking something. Charlie, he cried again. Oh, following him as a dream. Disoriented, his eyes darted around the room, then lit on the TV. Where a clown's painted face filled the screen, caught a convulsive fit of laughter. John sat up, rubbing his cheek where his watch had been, pressing onto his face. He checked the time and then breathed a sigh of relief. Just had enough time to get to work. He sat back, taking a moment to catch his breath on the TV screen. A local news anchor was holding a mic up for a man dressed as a circus clown, with a painted face, a red nose, and rainbow-colored, and around the neck was a collar. It looked like it belonged in a Renaissance painting, and he was wearing a full yellow clown suit with red pom-poms for buttons. "So tell me," the anchor said, "did you already have this costume, or did you make it especially for the grand opening?" John switched the TV off and headed straight for the shower. He'd been at it all day, but the noise was unbearable. A rattling, clinking, a clinging, then punctuated by shouts in a intermittent, shaking clatter of jackhammers. John closed his eyes, trying to blot out the vibrations. Resounded resounded in his chest, filling up amid the noise. The sound of desperate laughter suddenly rang in his ears. The figure from his dream came to him again, as out of sight, and felt though as he turned his head, right as face behind the door, John John turned. Lewis was standing a foot away, giving him a puzzled stare. I called your name 3 times, John. Shrugged, gesturing around the curves around him. Hey, some of the guys are going out after this. You coming? Lewis asked John. Come on, it'll be good for all of you. It's work and sleep. All you do is work and sleep. He laughed. Good. Naturally slapped John on the shoulder. Nurturedly. Right right. Good for me. John smiled back, then looked at the ground as the experience faded. I just have so much. Wait a sec. Let me check something. Right, lots going on. Just let me know if you change your mind. He clapped John on the shoulder again and headed to the back forklift. John watched him stride away. It hadn't been the first time John turned them down. Not the second time or third. It occurred to him that he would eventually stop trying. Maybe there'd be a moment where they would all just give up. Maybe it's just for the best. John, another name called. Now what? It was the foreman shouting from the door. His standalone office, a trailer that had been bought inside for the duration of the construction, and persisted miraculously on a dirt ledge. John trudged across the construction zone, ducking through a vinyl sheet in the trailer's doorway. Moments later, he was standing across the folding table from the foreman, the plastic wood texture paneling barely holding the walls surrounding him. I've got a couple of guys out there telling me you're distracted. I'm focused on my job, that's all, John said, forcing a smile and trying to prevent his frustration from leaking out. Oliver smiled unconvincingly. Focused. Oliver mimicked John. The smile startled Oliver sighed. Look, I gave you a chance because your cousin said you're a hard worker. I overlook the fact that you walked off on your last job and never came back. You know, I took a risk on you. John swallowed. Yes, sir, I know. Stop with the sir. Just listen to me. Look, I do what I'm told. I don't understand the problem. Your reactions are slow. You look like you're daydreaming out there. You're not a team player. What? This is an active construction zone. You're in La La Land, or you're not thinking about the safety of the other men out there. Someone's going to get hurt or killed. I'm not saying you have to share the secrets and braid one another's hair. I'm saying you have to be on the team. They have to trust that you're not going to let them down when it counts. John gave an understanding nod, and this is a good job, John. I think these are good guys out there. Work isn't too easy to come by these days, and I need you to get your head in the game, because next time I see you in the crowds, well, just don't put me in that position. Understand? Yeah, I understand, John said numbly. He didn't move, standing on the shag brown carpet that came out of the portable office as through waiting to be dismissed from detention. Okay, get out, John. Okay, get out. John went the dressing down had taken up from the last few minutes of his work day, and he helped Sergey put away some of the equipment. Then he headed to his car with a muttered goodbye. "Hey," Sergey called from for him. John stopped. "Last call, John broke off, spotting Oliver out of the corner of his eye. "Maybe next time," he said. Sergey pressed. "Come on, it's my excuse to avoid that new kid's place. My daughter had been begging me to go there all week. Lucy's been taking her, but robots eat me out." John paused, and the world grew silent around him. "What place?" John said. "So you coming?" Sturgey asked. John took a few more steps backward as if he came too close to a ledge. "Maybe another time," John said, and walked and decidedly to his car. It was old, brownish red, something that might have been cool in high school, but now it's just a reminder that he was still a kid who hadn't moved on, a mark of status that had become a mark of shame. Within a space of a year, he sat heavily, a plume of dust shouting out from the sides of the car seat. He dropped onto his hands. He dropped onto it. His hands were shaking. "Get a grip." He closed his eyes and clutched the wheel, steadying himself. "This is life now. You can do it." Oh, wait a sec. Just doing something. "It," he whispered, then opened his eyes and sighed. Sounds like lame. Sounds like something lame my dad would have said. He turned the key. The drive home should have been 10 minutes, but the route he took was close to half an hour, as it avoided driving through town. As if he didn't drive through town, there was no way through town. If he didn't drive through town, there was no risk of running into people he didn't know. They didn't want to talk to. More importantly, he didn't want to risk running into people he want to talk to, be a team player. He couldn't muster real resentment towards Oliver. John wasn't a team player, not anymore. For almost 6 months, he had been coming and going home to work like a train on a track, stopping to buy food and now and then, but not much. Now and again, but not much else. He spoke only when necessary. Avoided eye contact. He was startled when people spoke to him, whether they'd were co-workers, co-workers saying hello, or strangers asking the time. He made conversations, but he was get better at speaking while walking away. But he was getting better. Oh, he was always polite, while also making it clear he had somewhere to be, made obvious when necessary by studently, yeah, I think, turning in the opposite direction when someone felt like he was fading away, and was jarring to jarring. It was and disappointing to be reminded that he could still be seen. He pulled into the lost apartment complex, a 2-story building, not really meant for long-term tenements, but there was a light in the window of the manager's office. He had tried for months to track the the uh, the open hours, then given up, concluding that there was no pattern. He grabbed an envelope from the glove compartment and headed towards the door. He knocked and there was no response. Through inside he could hear sounds of movement. He knocked again, but this time the door opened partially. An old woman with the skin of a lifelong smoker appeared out at him. "Hey, Delia," John smiled. She didn't smile back. "Rent check." John handed an envelope to her. "I know it's late. I came by yesterday, but no one was here." "Was it during business hours?" Delia peered into the envelope carefully, as though suspicious of what might be inside. Lights went off, so then it wasn't during business hours. Delia bared her teeth, but it wasn't really a smile. "I saw you hung up a plant," she said abruptly. "Oh yeah." John peered over his shoulder towards his apartment, as though to check where they stood. It's nice to take care of something, right?" John tried to smile again, but he quickly gave up. Ink viewed in a vacuum of judgment that allowed no levity. "That's allowed, right? To have a plant?" "Yes, you can have a plant." Darius took a step back inside and looked poised to the door. "People usually settle in here at all, and usually there's a house, then a wife, then the plant, right?" John looked down at his shoes. Wait a sec, let me check. Down at his shoes. "Then it's just been rough," he began, but the door closed with a firm thunk here. John considered the door for a minute, but then he headed to the ground floor apartment in the complex. Now for a month, it was a single bedroom unit with a kitchen. He kept the blinds up while he was away, to show that he had nothing in the area. It was prone to burglaries, and it seemed like a safe bet to the Telegraph that the fact there's nothing to steal here. Once inside, John locked the door behind him and carefully slid the chain into place. His apartment was cool and dark and quiet. He sighed and rubbed his temples. The headache was still there, but he was growing accustomed that the place was sparsely furnished, and it had come to that way, and uh, the only personal touch he had added to the living room was a sack of cardboard boxes full of books against the wall below the window. He glared at them with a disappointed familiarity as he went to the bedroom and sat down on his bed, the springs creaking stiffly beneath beneath him. He didn't bother turning on the light. There was enough daylight still leaking through the small, dingy window above his bed. John looked toward his dresser, where a familiar face looked back at him. A toy rabbit's head, body nowhere to be found. "What did you do today?" John said, meeting the plushly rabbit's eyes, as if it might show a spark of recognition. "Theodore." "Oh, I know who Theodore is." Theodore just stared back at him blankly, his eyes dark with a lifeless. "You look with dead, dark and lifeless. You look terrible, worse than me." John just stood and approached the rabbit's head. He couldn't ignore the smell of mothballs and dirty fabric. John's smiles faded. He grabbed the head by the ears and held it in the air. "Time to throw you away," he considered almost every day. He clenched his jaw, and then set it back on the dresser carefully. not wanting to look at it further. He closed his eyes, not expecting sleep to come, but he, but hoping he, but hoping, okay, yeah, he hadn't slept well the night before, but on the night before that he couldn't, they had come to dread sleep. He put it off as long as he could, as long as he could be walking for miles, as long as he could walking for miles. Sorry about that. Um, miles of the road until late at night, returning home and trying to read. I was saying, staring at the wall. The familiarity was frustrating. He grabbed his pillow and went back to the living room. As he lay down on the on the living room. He lay down on the couch, swinging his legs over the arm. He could fit the sign over his arm, so he could fit. The silence in the little apartment was beginning to ring in his ears as he grabbed the remote off the floor and turned on the TV. I'm probably gonna end it there since I'm extremely tired and I don't want to read anymore. So I'll probably continue it tomorrow. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and bye bye.